Good morning. This is the Friday Fireside, and I'm here with a guy who is known to all of us, but we all might not know what he's doing now. This is Tony Goncalves. Tony, how are you?
I'm good, Rick. I like the hat.
Well, as I said when we were doing our intro, when you look like me, there's a certain social responsibility that you have. And
Tis the
I do
season.
I do some community work as Santa as well as some family work, and it turns out I have developed a bit of a specialty for being Santa with groups of autistic kids.
You're an amazing human being.
Well, they require different treatment. I can't be big. I can't be loud, right? I have to listen hard and watch hard and communicate in ways that are not always verbal. I had a little boy last week who he wouldn't sit on my lap. The parents brought him in. This was a one-on-one session. Parents would come in for 10 or so minutes, and he wouldn't sit on my lap. He wouldn't have anything to do with me. And finally, his mom plunked him down on my lap, and I found his tickle spot. I
Nice.
asked her first. I found his tickle spot. And so we didn't get a giggle, but we got a smile. So they got a nice picture. And then they went off to do some other activities. And when they all came back, he stood at the doorway to the room that I was in and just stood there looking at me. He didn't say anything, but I waved and I smiled and he got this little bitty grin on his face. And then he walked on. And I figured, language is a whole lot more than just words,
Amen.
you know?
Amen.
But now,
Dude,
speaking of language, you're in Portugal, and I assume you speak Portuguese because you grew up there and you bought the family homestead and restored it, right?
I did. I did. I'm actually in New York right now.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. We spend, I spend about 10 days every 6 weeks or so. And now that we're empty nesters, we're spending, chunks our plan is to spend chunks at a time. And yeah, I bought the little place in the middle of the mountains that I was born in and spent the first 4 years of my life from my uncle. And it's been a labor of love, after 4 years of a long renovation project. Rosemary and I spent the month of October there. Pretty amazing.
That's way cool. All right. So now speaking of time, I met you first when you were at DirecTV and you were shaking things up there by introducing, I'm not going to say interactivity per se, but creativity to the user experience at DirecTV, and then through the various and sundry mergers and acquisitions, DirecTV and AT&T, and T, and then Warner and Crunchyroll and Otter Media. Give us a brief background, because dude, you've been all over the place.
Yeah, look, it was an incredible journey. It was a little over 25 years of innovating from within, if you will. And I got really lucky. It was at the time when, mobile was skyrocketing, and streaming was becoming much more prevalent. And my job, largely became to disrupt from within and right. So, at DirecTV, we started a lab where we started playing around with VR. We built a Spanish language streaming service inside of that lab, which lasted for about a year and a half. But it was called Yaveo. It was awesome. Um, and then yeah, I was the TV Everywhere guy, back when TV Everywhere was a thing.
And
You know,
DirecTV Now was part of all that, right?
and then when we got to AT&T, we had been trying to pivot to a virtual MVPD for a long time, and AT&T within 5 months, DirecTV Now emerged, which was a fascinating journey. And then HBO Max.
Yep.
And then look, I had the good fortune of overseeing a venture portfolio in outer media. And we had two incredible exits coming out of that with Crunchyroll, which is thriving right now. Sony acquired it for a little almost 1.2 billion. And Reese Witherspoon's Hello Sunshine studio was born out of that as well. And
Yep.
that's a great exit as well.
All right. So after you did all that, you decided to go back to Portugal. Why?
Well, it's actually kind of interesting. I right after I left, my wife actually suggested, that I go spend a few weeks on my own in Portugal to, figure out what I wanted to do for a living, and what I wanted to do next. And I've always been a believer that you know when your profession sort of coalesces with a passion and a purpose, it's actually not a profession. It's not work.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Um, and I sort of committed to myself once I left after the Warner Discovery merger that whatever I do next had to sort of, tie those or tick those boxes, if you will. And, look, I've been around the block in a business that I love and have a lot of passion for. I also have a lot of passion for scaling people and scaling businesses. Um, and those are skills that are transferable across industries. And look, my culture has always been very important to me. And if I can use my platform to put more, Portuguese businesses, Portuguese entrepreneurs, Portuguese executives on a global stage, I call that a win. And that's sort of, I think, what drove me to build a platform to do that, an advisory firm to do that. And that's kind of what I'm up to at this point.
Your reputation, and I'm saying this only for the comments the people made last time we had a show, your people loved you. I think that you were a humanist and certainly enlightened, but also you were kind. And that's a really hard thing to do in big, big corporations. And so you're to be congratulated for that.
Thank you. Thank you. I miss my people.
Well,
I
guess
miss,
what? They miss you, dude.
I
They
miss
don't
my
like you to
people.
come back, by the way.
Uh, you bring up a really interesting, kindness is often misunderstood. I do think I'm kind. I make it a point. It's a leadership principle that I have, and I think it's very, very important for everyone, especially leaders, to be kind, especially in, tough times, times of turmoil. But if you ask my people, I wasn't always nice.
There's a
And there's a
huge difference there.
huge difference, right?
I have always tried to instill that in my son and now with the grandkids. Not so much nice, but there's good, which is you obey the rules, and there's kind, which my son first demonstrated to me when he was 8 years old and playing soccer, and he knocked into some kid on the field and knocked him over, and he stopped in the middle of the game and helped the kid get up. I mean, it's right there.
I'm a big, so European football and American football fan. Uh, and that's the one thing I tend to look for when judging the character of the individual
Yeah,
that's playing. I may love that person as a player, but when you're going at it,
yeah.
how do you react to your adversary when they're in need? And anyway, so I appreciate your kind words and you carrying that through.
There you go. Okay, now you have just started a consulting firm with the name Enrose, so we need to know where the name came from and what it is that you do. And you've got a podcast, and I want to see how that all works into your passion for media and all things Portugal. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so it's called the Evrose Group.
Evrose, not
And
Enrose. Excuse me.
yeah,
It's a V, not an
all
N.
good, not to worry. It's actually not very easy to say. Um, but names are interesting, right? Like yeah, sometimes you can think of something immediately, and sometimes they need to be nurtured. My wife's name is Rosemary. My daughter's name is Olivia Rose, and that's sort of the those are the ingredients of the name. Um, and the intent is that every rose in my life gives me joy,
Yeah.
and therefore the work that I do will need to give me joy as well. Um, and then look, the reality is every rose was taken, ever rose was taken, and we just have to keep shortening it until
Got
we
it.
can find something that we can mark.
Okay, now what does Evrose do as a consulting firm? We have a website and people can go to that.
Yeah, we have a website. It's called Everose, it's everosegroup.com. But it's actually a very simple premise.
Okay.
I've been through an incredible amount of growth in an industry that I love, that we love, and an incredible amount of transformation. And so I think I can help individuals and companies with growth strategy and transformation strategy. So that's at the highest level.
Okay.
Um, but I'm very clear to describe what services we offer. And so it's mentorship, it's advisory, and it's investment. And so the way that I think about it is I mentor for free,
Okay.
I advise for a fee, and I invest in people and things that I like. Um, and I have the liberty of doing that, and I have the liberty of changing the thesis if I want. Um,
I like that.
something I didn't have my entire, my entire career. And I'm highly, highly concentrated in Portugal because I think that's where I can provide the most value. And it speaks to me, right? It speaks to the love that I have for my culture, and the fact that Portugal is hot, both from a tourism standpoint, an Epicurean standpoint, but also from a tech and innovation standpoint.
Tell us about the tech and innovation hotness of Portugal.
Yeah, look, I think last time I was here, I told you that, for a country with, 10, a population of 10.5 million, we've produced 11 unicorns. I'm using one right now. There's a company called Sword Health that came out of Portugal. I have very bad lower back pain. I've been going to physical therapy, chiropractor, acupuncture, forever. These guys send you a tablet and a digital plan,
Okay.
with sensors that you put on super easy. And
Sensors. So you put
sensors.
sensors on your body. Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
you basically, but they're like shoulder, they're like a strap that goes around your
Yeah, yeah,
shoulder, a
yeah.
strap that goes around. Um, and they're working with insurance companies to use tech as a way to lower sort of the cost of managing chronic pain. That's a Portuguese company, which is sort of, it's amazing. Um, so that's just one example,
Oh,
but
wait. So they are not just serving the audience, the consumers in Portugal. I assume they're, if not there now, they're going worldwide with that, right?
yeah, they're global, and scaling, and yeah, and they were born in Portugal just like me.
Okay. Now, let's if you don't mind digging into that a little bit. This is a tech company that's using tablets. The real magic is the software, not the hardware for that. Is it hard for them to scale globally? Do they need big partners to do that? Do
Yeah,
they? And what do you do with that?
most Portuguese tech companies that have successfully scaled
Yep,
have taken big rounds of investment outside of Portugal. And
sure.
Portugal is, again, it's a small country,
Yep.
and so yeah. I mean, they need just like any company, right? They need the capital to scale globally. Doing business in Portugal is very, very cost effective, but doing business globally is not as cost effective. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
they need to take in investment from outside of Portugal in order to scale.
So, do you help arrange for those investments and you
Yeah.
represent then the software owner in that relationship, right? Not the
So,
investor per se.
so this is a relationship I actually don't like. I don't work with Sword.
Okay.
It was an
Oh,
example to just give you, I work with a company called Media Probe, for example.
Media Pro. All
Media
right.
Probe. And they use biometric sensors
Oh,
to measure a consumer's reaction to content. Attention measurement, biometric measurement, pretty fascinating, right?
that's pretty
Um,
wild.
yeah.
Is that a product yet?
Yeah, that's out in the market. Number of media companies here in the States are using it. And my role there is to help the CEO with strategy, very broad sort of long-term strategy, on where to take the company, and how to evolve the product, how to scale the product. Um, Also very tactical, right? Like, are we focusing on media companies? Are we focusing on brands? Are we focusing on agencies, as an example?
Ad tech and
Um,
all the rest of that. Yeah,
and
yeah.
all that. And then yes, as they're looking for their fundraising strategy, I would certainly help them figure out what the strategy should be and who should they should be talking to.
So I'm assuming that with Media Probe, you don't give me some kind of headset that I have to wear as I have done in the past, where it's watching where my eyes go. How?
No, this is the fascinating thing, right?
Okay.
So it uses they use galvanic skin response, which is basically a lie detector test. It's a polygraph.
Okay.
So the tech has been used forever, and what they've done is they've miniaturized a a polygraph that you put in the palm of your hand, you sync it to an app,
Yep.
and between ACR and the device that's in your hand, you're getting real-time emotional biometric response to to an individual's state, right? So in this case, the focus is media. So
Okay.
how are they reacting to X scene, X ad, etc.? What's their emotional response passively? So then you take that, and there's a ton of use cases, but how do you optimize content?
All right.
Period.
So I've got friends. I think you knew or know Jesse Redness over here, and he's got a company called Consent with a Q, and he is trying to be. I kid him that he's the good housekeeping seal of approval for opting in to
And he's also a
people.
great human being.
And he's a terrific guy and he's got a great family. But anyway, to using my own data, the biometric data takes that a number of steps further, but it would appear to me that it's one thing for Media Probe to create a Nielsen-ish panel of a few thousand people holding the device, watching the TV over a period of time. It's entirely different if you want to try to incent people to do that because you're giving them something, which is what Jesse's all about. Is that part of the plan?
Yeah, well, that is actually how that is the go-to-market for Media Probe is
Okay.
it's a panel, a few thousand people,
Yep.
and they are incented to watch television.
But if
Uh,
they want to get me to respond to what I'm watching tonight, just the broad population. I'm not going to be holding something in my hand, but is there something eventually, maybe not there, that I could simply put on my wrist and you're going to pay me $4 a month to do that? I mean, is that
yeah, look, probably not in this case.
okay?
Like I'm a big proponent of focus.
Yeah, oh
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
these guys do something and they do it really, really well. And so the question now is how do you scale what they do? But to be sort of an always on and sort of really broad sort of
Yep.
data collection vehicle um, might actually steer the company in a very different direction.
Well, yeah,
Um,
and it's much larger, and it's the kind of thing that Apple ought to do if you really want to know
yeah,
the truth. I mean, it's
yeah,
right there.
yeah.
Okay, so what kind of media are you working with? Are you helping people develop and distribute shows? Because you left us after creating a god-awful mess, by the way. That's why we all want you back. The TV market used to be terrific, and
In turmoil.
and we all screwed it up. Okay. So what kind of media are you working with and how are you helping us get out
Yeah.
of the mess?
So I'm working with a great company in Portugal called Grupo Empresa. Think of it as the Murdochs of Portugal,
Okay.
only different. Uh,
Minus the family dynamic.
they all get
Oh,
along,
they'll get
but
along.
it's a family business. Started 50 years ago as an independent newspaper, the first private news organization in Portugal, and then subsequently television sort of stations, and now a podcast network and a streamer. So I'm working with them, and I have been working with them for a couple of years. And my good friend Francisco, who's the CEO, on those two things, growth and transformation strategy, and trying to create levels of differentiation for them. Um, and I'll just give you an example. One of the things that we did just this past October is we formed a partnership with Tribeca,
Okay.
and we took the Tribeca Festival to Lisbon, whereas Grupo Empresa in this case and some of their media brands were the on-the-ground operator, and Tribeca, did a festival, had a festival in Lisbon. It was amazing, and very on mission, right? When you think about it, I'm trying to put, you know, uh, Portuguese entrepreneurs, creators, and businesses on a global stage. And this is just, this is a fascinating way to do it.
Now I might be screwing this up, but wasn't one of the stories told in the movie Love Actually set in Portugal?
There's a few, yes.
Yes, and the writer and the other gal who was his maid, and then I that it is the season for that movie, and that is
It
certainly
is
one
the
of my
season.
favorites.
And look, my hope is that, we convince, more international productions to, do work and produce in Portugal and use Portuguese talent to do it, both in front and behind the screen. And along the way, help a local media company, scale beyond its borders.
Cool. All right. Last thing. You're doing a podcast. How often do you do it? How do we find it? What do you talk about? All that such as that.
Yeah, so thank you for that. So that's another
That's
one
a
in part.
plug.
That's a plug. That's also in partnership with my client, Grupo Empresa. They have a newspaper called Espresso, 50 years old. And as we were talking about growth strategies, one of the thoughts was with all this interest in Portugal, how do you expand beyond your borders?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and one option was to take this podcast network that they were nurturing and adding an English language podcast. And so it's the first English language project for this Portuguese news entity on mission. Um, and look, it's called The Heart and Hustle of Portugal. We launched last Friday. We drop weekly. And the intent is, for lack of a better description, it's to find more Tony G's, right? It's to find individuals who carry Portugal in their heart and bring its spirit to life through their work, vision, and passion. Uh, there's very successful um, entrepreneurs, there's very successful actors and actresses, there's very successful, journalists that happen to be of Portuguese descent. And the intent is to go find them and sort of extract their immigration story and sort of their platforms. And then conversely, there are non-Portuguese people that have found the heart and the hustle of Portugal in Portugal. And so it's trying to extract from them how they identify with the culture as well.
That's cool. I will confess that I know diddly squat nothing about podcasts. I don't listen to them. I've had people tell me that we should turn this into a podcast because it's roughly the right length, 20 to 25 minutes. And the one thing that I keep coming up against is how do you actually make money with it? But your strategy is you're using the podcast for not only a cause and a message, but it sounds like it supports your client's core business and probably your core business. And so you don't need Pepsi ads inserted into it to make money, right?
Yeah, look, it's really hard to make money in this business, period.
Yes, true.
And yeah, look, I think this is if I did this for the money, I probably wouldn't do it.
Yeah,
What I'm doing, one, look, maybe selfishly, I'm building a network, right? While I'm doing it, I'm sort of
absolutely.
expanding my network. These guests that I've been talking to are really incredible individuals. I'm learning from them, and so I'm growing. But yeah, I mean, the purpose it's serving is one on mission for myself, but two for my client, which is sort of trying to test the opportunity of expanding outside of the borders of Portugal.
There you go. Well, the one piece of advice I can give you is that in my I'm in my fifth season of this damn show. No one tunes into this show to see me. They tune in to see my guest. If I have a skill, it's I got a lot of friends. So I can bring in some pretty cool guests with that.
And some cool and some cool shirts.
And well, yes, and that's because I got a black background and an old white guy in front of a black background can be very boring visually. But anyway, listen, on that note, Tony Gonçalves from Portugal, actually right this moment in New York. Merry Christmas to you, bud.
Merry Christmas to you, and thank you, Rick.
And we'll catch everybody next time after the first of the year on the Friday side. Bye bye.